What would you do if you went to sleep in your bed but woke up inside a cage? Holly opens her eyes to total darkness and the feeling of a spider crawling across her skin. When she jumps up, she hits metal. She has been chained shut inside a rusted box with a lock the size of a fist. There is no way out. She pulls until her nails rip away. She screams until her throat burns, but she is completely alone. She has no memory of how she got there and no idea who is watching or what they want. The terrifying realization that she is trapped like an animal is just the beginning. In the morning, Seth appears with a tray of food and an empty bowl meant to be her toilet. Holly is terrified, but Seth acts calm, as if he believes he is doing something good. When she reacts with anger, he quietly takes the food away, shuts off the lights, and leaves her alone again. He says he will return only when she behaves the way he expects. Seth's everyday life is empty. He has no family, no friends, and no one waiting at home. Every day follows the same pattern: a long bus ride to the animal shelter, hours spent caring for the dogs, and a silent return to his apartment. He barely speaks to people at work, but with the dogs, he is relaxed. He knows each one, remembers their habits, and treats them with care. The dogs trust him, and he depends on that feeling more than he admits. During one morning bus ride, he notices Holly, a girl he knew from high school. She doesn't notice him at first, but he forces himself to walk over and introduce himself. Holly is polite but doesn't remember him, since he was a year ahead of her. Seth sees a notepad in her hand and assumes she writes for a living. Holly corrects him. She enjoys writing, but she works as a waitress. Seth tries a small joke to break the tension, but Holly doesn't react. Before he can gather the courage to ask her out, her stop arrives and she gets off the bus without hearing the rest of his sentence. That night, back in his empty apartment, Seth searches her name online. He scrolls through her photos and posts, noticing that she's single and also loves dogs. The next day, desperate for help, Seth asks Nate, the shelter's security guard, for advice on how to ask a woman out. Nate is annoyed but tells him the basics: be confident, be funny, try to make her laugh, and makes it clear he is not Seth's friend and never wants to talk about this again. Later, Seth's supervisor calls him in. His favorite dog is scheduled to be put down. The head veterinarian sees how much this hurts Seth and quietly offers him a chance to adopt the dog, but Seth's apartment doesn't allow pets. He stays with the animal until the end, and then cremates the remains alone, feeling the loss sink deeper than he expected. The loneliness hits him harder after that. Seth returns to Holly's social media and studies everything she likes and dislikes. He writes it all down, then searches for the restaurant where she works. He decides to create a chance meeting. The next day, he goes to the restaurant and sits in her section. Holly walks over, acting professional, and doesn't recognize him. Seth reminds her they met on the bus. Holly apologizes politely and takes his order, but she doesn't come back to his table unless she has to. When she brings the bill, Seth uses the moment to ask her out. Holly refuses and says she has a boyfriend. Seth nervously tells her he knows that isn't true, which makes her uncomfortable. She walks away quickly, leaving him alone at the table. That night, Seth cannot calm his thoughts. He follows Holly through the streets as she walks home, keeping just far enough back to avoid being noticed. Holly feels something is wrong. Every few steps, she looks over her shoulder. When she reaches her apartment, she tells her roommate, Claire, that someone might be watching her. Claire brushes it off, thinking Holly is still shaken from her breakup. Their conversation is interrupted when Holly gets a call from her ex, Eric. He tries to apologize for cheating, but Holly ends the call. Later, the two friends sit outside with drinks. Claire admits she worries Holly has not moved on and suggests giving Eric another chance, but Holly refuses to reopen a door she already closed. The next day at work, a large bouquet of roses is delivered to Holly. She assumes Eric sent them to make peace and goes to see him at the bar where he works. Eric takes advantage of the misunderstanding and acts as if the flowers were his idea. He tries to win her back, but Holly recognizes his usual charm without sincerity. She steps outside to get away from him. Seth is waiting for her. He steps forward and tells her he sent the flowers. He insists he feels something special, something rare. Holly is caught off guard and uncomfortable. She tries to go back into the bar, but Seth steps in front of her. In the struggle, she hits him and calls out to Eric that Seth tried to grab her. Eric loses control and beats Seth, throwing him into the street. While lying on the ground, Seth sees Holly's writing journal, which slipped from her bag during the chaos. He quietly takes it and leaves. That night, Seth stays awake, reading every page. Every entry feels like a secret he was never meant to see, and he reads them all until morning. At the animal shelter the next day, armed with the private knowledge from the journal, Seth starts planning. He finds an old storage room with a hidden cellar that no one uses anymore. Inside, he begins building a heavy metal cage. the same type used at the shelter to restrain dangerous dogs. He collects supplies from the medical cabinet and tests one of the sedatives on himself. Hours later, he wakes up dizzy but convinced the plan will work. That night, he follows Holly again. She walks down a quiet street, still on edge. When she hears footsteps, she spins around and sprays pepper spray at the figure behind her. It turns out to be a homeless man, and Seth keeps a safe distance, watching. Moments later, the homeless man is dragged into a dark alley, and violent screams echo across the street. Seth watches Holly rush away, unaware of the attack happening behind her. Thinking the danger's gone, Holly hurries home, but Seth is close behind her. He climbs the fire escape and slips through an open window into her apartment. Holly hears a noise and closes the window, assuming it was the wind. When she turns off her bedroom light and settles down, Seth steps silently out of the shadows. That night, Seth reaches the shelter carrying a large delivery box. Nate barely looks up when Seth explains it is an emergency shipment for the medical wing. Inside the box is Holly, unconscious from the drug he tested earlier. Seth carries her to the hidden cellar and locks her inside the cage he built. Holly wakes hours later, dehydrated and disoriented. She tries to move, but the metal bars confirm what she already fears. She has been taken somewhere no one will find her. She forces herself to stay calm long enough to understand her surroundings, then waits through the silence. Seth does not return until morning. He brings a small pack of food and a bowl meant for her waist. Holly shakes with fear, but Seth talks as if this is a necessary process. When she reacts with anger, he removes the food, shuts off the lights, and leaves her alone again. He says he will come back when she stops resisting. Left in the dark, Holly uses a loose link in the chain to scratch a mark into the metal, creating a system to count the days. Seth stays away until the third day. By then, Holly is weak and severely dehydrated. This is the same method the shelter uses to break dangerous dogs. Deny attention until the animal becomes desperate and compliant. Seth gives her a small amount of water and food. When she grabs his leg out of fear and panic, he warns her that desperate attempts will only make things worse. He tells her he will return tomorrow to begin her training. After he leaves, Holly sees Claire standing outside the cage. It is revealed that Claire is not real. She is a projection of Holly's spiraling mind, created to keep her sane. Holly argues with the vision about whether to plan an escape or surrender to the situation. When Seth returns, Holly tries to understand his motives. He explains that everything depends on whether he can save her. He wants to separate the version of her the world sees from the one she described in her journal. After he leaves again, Holly tells the imaginary Claire that she now has a plan, but it will require patience and timing. The next day, Seth lectures Holly about love, claiming that she doesn't believe in it. He insists that real love requires sacrifice and pain. Holly responds with cold clarity, telling him that only people who hate themselves imagine love as a transaction. Seth then tells her something that freezes her in place. He says he constantly hears her talking to someone when he comes down the stairs. He claims she is always alone, but that she seems to have begun to confuse her imagination with reality. He knows this because he read it in her journal. Holly murdered Claire. He explains the story he pieced together. Holly discovered that Claire was having an affair with Eric. During a late-night drive, Holly confronted her. Claire admitted it, and Holly deliberately crashed their car into oncoming traffic. Both survived the impact. Injured and bleeding, Holly pulled a piece of shrapnel from her own stomach and used it as a weapon on Claire. Holly says the journal entries are fiction, ideas from a writer's imagination. But Seth refuses to believe that. He insists the writing was not fictional at all because he followed her at night and watched her kill the homeless man, and then several others. He claims her crimes are escalating, sloppy, and dangerous. He believes she kept the journal because she wanted to be caught. He tells her this is why he took her, to help her stop. Holly finally agrees to his help. She tells him she accepts everything. Seth seems satisfied and leaves. The moment he is gone, Holly turns to the imaginary Claire and explains that her cooperation is nothing but a trap. She plans to use it to make Seth relax just long enough for her to escape. The next day, Holly changes tactics. She knows Seth wants her approval, so she acts warm and playful, hoping he will open the cage, or at least lower his guard. When he doesn't respond, she talks about how great white sharks behave in captivity, then slams her head against the bars. She warns him that if she dies in his cage, he will never explain it away. In that moment, she takes control by turning her own death into a threat he cannot manage. The display rattles Seth more than he expected. He avoids the cellar for days. At work, he loses focus, misses tasks, and nearly gets fired. The pressure pushes him back downstairs to face what he started. He returns on a weekend, telling Nate he has maintenance to finish. Nate tries to give him his forgotten paycheck, but Seth rushes past. In the cellar, he gives Holly a single energy bar and says more food depends on her behavior. As he turns to leave, Holly describes a dream where they live together in a calm beach house. Seth hesitates, then goes upstairs to buy her extra snacks. While he is gone, Nate wanders the building looking for him. He spots Seth coming out of the hidden cellar door and grows curious. Nate investigates and finds the cage with Holly inside. He tries to break the lock, unaware that Seth has returned and is standing behind him. Holly looks directly at Seth, silently telling him to act. While he hesitates, she distracts Nate long enough to force him into a choice. She pushes him toward violence by reminding him that true devotion means doing whatever it takes to protect the person you love. She repeats the idea Seth used earlier, that love demands sacrifice. Convinced she finally understands him, Seth attacks. Nate fights back easily, but Holly trips him, and he falls onto Seth's knife. The wound is deep, but Nate is still alive. Holly calmly instructs Seth to finish it. She tells him to lift a cinder block and use it on Nate. When it's over, she explains how to dispose of the body. Most to the dogs, the rest in the incinerator. She tells Seth to report that Nate never came back from errands. By morning, Holly is satisfied. Seth has crossed the line she needed. She tells him that choosing her over the police proves they share the same nature. While Seth thinks he is saving her, Holly is shaping him into something darker. Detective Mara soon begins looking into Nate's disappearance. Seth becomes the main suspect because his story keeps changing. Nate's keycard shows no exit, and Seth talks as if he already knows Nate is dead. Nate's phone records also contradict Seth's timeline. 9 days have passed since Holly's abduction, and she has not broken. Instead, she stops eating and barely speaks, pushing Seth into frustration and panic. Eventually, she tells him she accepts she will never be free and claims she now loves him, but she needs proof that he loves her. She demands one of his fingers. She also says she has always been a killer, but learned to hide it from everyone. For once, she doesn't have to hide from him. Seth refuses to cut off a finger, so she tells him not to return until he sees her as an equal, not a pet. With the detective closing in, Seth feels time is running out. He returns to the cellar and slices off his own finger. As he collapses, Holly picks up the knife he dropped. She presses it to her throat and threatens to kill herself unless he opens the cage. Shocked, Seth unlocks it. Holly steps out and tells him she finally believes him. She says she loves him because he saved her. Then she kisses him, and in the same motion, attacks him. Sometime later, Holly seems to have moved on. She is back with Eric and has become a published author. When she finds out Eric is cheating again, she says nothing. Instead, she goes to a secluded warehouse. Inside, Seth is alive but locked in a cage. His throat injury left him unable to speak, and his body shows the marks of the violence Holly inflicts whenever she feels the need to kill. She thanks him for being there for her. He is the outlet she uses to release the darkness inside her, so she can move through the world pretending to be normal.